for joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show. We have with us from England and New Zealand, Bernie Pryor. Bernie's been traveling the world for over the last 7 years, all over, sometimes twice around the world each year, giving talks, workshops, like we just did in New York this past weekend at the Mantra Center. And what Bernie speaks about, from having realized in his own body, through his own understanding, the relationship, the primary, fundamental, and essential relationship between man and woman. And its implications are utterly, totally simple and profound for changing the way life is lived on Earth. So Bernie will be speaking with us today about that, and it's really a chance for you all to touch into something deeper inside yourselves and learn from this very beautiful and very real place, something for yourselves about the nature of man and woman. Hey Bernie.
Hi, Mitchell.
Good to have you.
Hi.
Great to see you. So, if you would, just like, how is it that you first came across personally in your own life that you had the kind of dawning realization that you did?
Well, like anything of truth, you don't know that it's going to happen. It's almost stumbled upon, and that
Like
the mystery.
serendipity.
Yeah, the mystery just happens. It's not like you see it coming, although you do get a sense of something happening. But then when it happens, it's so utterly new and fresh, you know you've never, ever experienced it before. And so it was kind of like that, and that I've always had a profound love of the source, of what some people call God, but also equally I discovered I had an equally profound love of woman. And that's really the whole point, that what I'm endeavouring to get across to people is that man's love of woman should equal his love of God. For woman is a personification of love in existence. And love beyond existence could be said to be truth, or truth, which is beyond existence, in existence, can be said to be love. Therefore, that sits woman in a very, very deep place, that she is the God of love, if you like, that man is here to serve and to open up to his deepest place and re-establish her in a true authority of the love that she actually is, because she's being so used.
Yeah.
So I discovered this through my profound love of woman. And so in loving woman so completely and utterly, she revealed herself to me eventually.
I hear you. It's interesting, because when we really look at history, especially mythology, stories of different lands from time immemorial, really, there is always this great beatification of woman, and as the goddess, essentially, as the queen. And so symbolically she's very much representing God and the earth, of course, Gaia. And so the themes always to be there: man the king, woman the queen, and this, like even in the tarot, for instance, this very beautiful spiritual marriage, if you will. What you're doing, it feels like, what I've gathered from the workshop, is you're bringing this into people's lives in a very real and very alive way. So it's sort of like not just theory or in a deck of esoteric cards.
No, it's not theory.
But it's like,
it's experienced
this is where it's
and
at.
lived. Yeah. You know,
just if you would talk
Yeah,
to
well, I speak from and teach from realization, and not from anything that I've ever read or ever been taught.
Yes.
You know, the only place I've ever been taught from is from life and the experience in life, and my deepening experience of what life is and where it comes from. And so I speak from my direct experience.
Yes.
So what I'm actually saying, that our divine attraction, or our attraction to woman, man's attraction to woman and woman's attraction to man, is of a sacred nature and of a divine nature. In truth, both woman and man are the appearance of God in form. The consciousness, in other words, of God, the consciousness has entered this body and is man and woman. So I kind of use these figures to describe that I say in the deepest place what man and woman's draw is together is to reach the God essence of themselves. That in the very depth of what man is, he is already one with Source, complete in his own right,
Mm-hmm.
and he sits as the spirit of the man, if you like. He sits deeply in that place in his golden radiance, and he's the living truth in that place. He's an eternal being, and by his side is the original love, woman, the beauty that you've been speaking about. And so she is there, the original love, woman in her pure essence, in her golden radiance, and they're eternal beings in that place. And that this existence in body-mind, this body-mind structure,
Mm-hmm.
in the senses, is a reflection of that. It's a reflection, we know, or a reflection or a projection, because it continually goes out. In other words, you close your eyes, it's gone. You go unconscious, it's gone. You go to sleep at night, and it's gone. So it can't be a sustained reality, because it keeps on disappearing to I, the perceiver.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a reflected reality, a projected one. So the endeavour I see is to bring into consciousness within these forms the full consciousness of what we truly are in the original essence of man and the original essence of woman in the deep. And so our biggest draw
So
together...
in the spiritual world,
Yeah.
it's already kind of
It's happened.
configured.
It already is.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
already is.
And
then we're the 3D physical
Yeah.
manifestation of
Of that. This is the projection
and
of
we're
that.
living, though, in something that you referred to over the weekend, Bernie, as in our animal selves,
Yeah.
and not fully in our bodies as
Yeah.
the spiritual self that we really are.
The consciousness that all this is happening in. We're not living as that. We've so wrongly identified ourselves as the body, mind, the thought and the feeling, and not the consciousness in which all this is taking place in. So we've lost track that we are really not born and don't die, although we see bodies born and die, that who we are as essence isn't born and doesn't die, and it's to remain in direct connection with that source and bring that source, as it were, here, living, so that we live as eternal beings. We live with no beginning and end, fearlessly living as that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm speaking of here.
Mm-hmm.
And so the divine attraction is that in the deep, what we really love is this is how we really are. We are already this. And this is why we...
Hold
Yeah,
this up
yeah.
for people to
Yeah, well, there we
enjoy
go.
the
This is
true
the,
image.
what I say is behind man and woman in the very deep is the self. And the self is now appearing as man. So that's God-man. And the self is now appearing as woman, God-woman. So it's still the one self appearing as man and as woman in their original true essence. So that's the God essence.
In the image of God, could you say? In a way?
In the image, in that every movement of their being is from that place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made in that image, although it has no form as such, because it's consciousness. But it's given form through the physical body. So what we're all drawn to, which is this romance of man and woman, and I say in the way of true love, is that behind this ordinary life is this God self that we know we are as man and we know we are as woman. And that's what we're endeavouring to reach. We're endeavouring to reach that profound place consciously in the simplicity of living in the senses. And that's quite a task, with all the interference of our personal natures and our personal minds and our self-consideration, to come to a place of no self, to come to a place where there's no self-consideration, and live this in here is quite a task.
Sure.
Nonetheless, it's the divine purpose of ourselves to incarnate this in this ordinary life.
It's interesting because it sort of puts a new slant on the power of our sexual drive,
Yeah.
which is so utterly profound in our daily lives, that you could understand in the view that you're putting forth, and tell me if this is in harmony with what you're saying. It's like the power of that drive is so great that it is, in a sense, God's way of driving us toward woman, obviously, and for men, and yet on the inside of that sexual drive is the wish to, not just for physical satisfaction, but also for ultimate spiritual satisfaction. And
Ultimate
joining.
spiritual renewal within the body form.
Yeah.
So it's essential that whilst alive in the body, that we reconnect with our original source and live from the original source. So we live in a way of truth to our being and not to our personalized identity that is born, that is going to die. So
Yes.
mortal. And that comes and goes, and we give so much steed to that. And giving so much steed and credence to that doesn't honor ourselves, and it doesn't renew life so deeply where we evolve into our pure essence in this physical body, so that it doesn't give this pure energy of the self away into the body, so that we actually live as ourselves. So we live like we're going to die. And so because we all live as though we're going to die, nobody's willing to give everything that they've got, thinking that we're, that
It's going to be over soon.
it's going to be over soon, and it's very fatalistic, and that we're not abundant. But we are abundant. We are endlessly ourselves, abundantly ourselves. And so there is no death because we weren't born. Just the bodies are born. And the bodies will actually last a hell of a lot longer if we lived from our true essence. So it's to reach that place. And at the crux of what I'm speaking about here is also the role in which woman plays in this. In that woman has the womb. She is the womb of life. That's why she's a woman.
Yes.
And we're all in the womb. Now, woman is the pure negative half of this scenario. So negative meaning she's surrendered, she's opened in the deepest place, and through that Shakti energy, that spiritual fragrance of the feminine, which is abundant, everything manifests through that. And man,
the bounty of earth.
Yeah, absolutely. The bounty of earth, the stars, everything, the whole universe.
The manifest universe.
It's all happening inside her womb. And she has the physical womb, also, which man doesn't have. She has the physical womb, which just shows who she is. The creation comes from her. We can see that through our children. And he represents the pure positivity. He represents that in man that has purpose. You could call it drive, but it's purpose. He has a divine purpose. And set within his mind is the original idea within God's mind of life on earth. So in that energy, he actually projects from that place the truth through woman's essence, and therefore you get creation. So what I'm saying here is how man sees woman is how existence turns up. If he's projecting his self-concern, if he's projecting his ego, that energy psychically enters a woman, whether he's making love to her or not, but if he's making love, even more so. And so the world or existence is a product or reflection of the love between man and woman. If
or the lack thereof.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
if she's not truly being loved and truly being adored, then what happens on the earth is the distraction that you now see, because the womb produces everything that man puts into it.
Okay, so it's also that of all the elements, water is the element associated most with women. And it's reflective in nature. So I'm getting it's got that mirror-like quality. So it's almost like whatever man puts into woman, whether it's through the womb or their consciousness, comes back and
That's
manifests on the planet.
That's right, because she is the pure negativity that
Right.
produces everything, materializes everything.
Got it.
She is that, because she has the womb. It's essential to
Yes.
see that she has the womb.
Yes.
And so everything that's taking place, regardless of what it looks like, is being produced through the womb.
Right. So interesting. And man, on the other hand, is connected, as you said, to the divine mind.
Yeah.
So what's going on in his mind has the projective quality.
And enters the woman's
enters
womb.
her. So on the level of idea, it enters her and comes back and visits him.
Yeah, that's
you
right,
know,
yeah.
in the form of what it looks like in society.
Absolutely. Societies are born out of his mind.
Yeah.
And
right.
also he has
Through her body.
Yeah, and he has the capacity in existence, not in this place,
Yeah.
but in existence. He has the capacity to shape woman. And so a lot of people don't like to hear this, but it's the truth. How man thinks about woman, she's shaped into, and you can see how that's happened over thousands of years,
Yes.
because she's a negative surrendered principle.
Yes.
And if she doesn't fully know who she is and be responsible for the love this, then she's, as it were, kidded by man's projection to go his way. And hence you see men who are quite sexual and egotistical. That energy's actually entering the woman that they make love with. In fact, it's entering that energy's entering the women in their offices, in their shops, in commerce, because woman is the receiver,
Right.
and man is the projector.
Right. So if man is not clear, Bernie, of what it is he's projecting,
Yeah.
or in tune with his deepest self,
If he's not in tune with his
then
deepest purpose,
distortions, disturbances,
if he's still
in the
living
field,
through his father's stuff,
the
if he's-
lineages, the
yeah,
ancestry,
absolutely,
the
yeah,
past, the memory.
that's it.
So I want to just, before going down that road, just ask you about something you mentioned about man has direction, man has purpose.
Mhm.
How would you describe what that purpose is?
Well,
Divine
that
mandate.
that purpose for each man is individualized. Although I have said, as you've seen, is that there is really only one man and one woman.
Yes.
So although it's individualized in the forms, in the masses, in the forms, it's actually one purpose within the divine mind of man. And that one purpose is to produce on earth, in a way of creation, the perfect man and woman, to bring the personification of what man and woman truly is on the earth in a living, working way.
I got it.
So that the whole earth is a direct temple of love, of truth, existing in this body-mind.
Okay. So, in a sense, we're perfected man and woman there.
That's the
give birth
potential.
give birth to then a perfected society.
That's right.
Which is just a community.
Well, I'd say
of-
there would be no society. There would only be whatever there is, the consciousness of man, the consciousness of woman, playing out the direct dance that is in the deep, in the bodies.
I see.
So it wouldn't be a social society as we now know. It would be man and woman living in the freedom of their divinity, and whatever that would look like.
So we don't know what that would.
We don't know what we
We
look
have no
like, but
idea.
we have, let's say, a taste of what that would feel like when we love. When we really love, what we know is freedom. When we really love, there is no past, no future. There is eternity, presence happening, freedom happening. That's a taste of what we truly are and what we can be in an expression of the divine love that we really
So
are.
what does this look like in your relationship, for instance? If you can give me kind of and the audience a practical sense of what it looks like to be living in truth, wherein you recognize the goddess in your woman, and she the god in her man.
What does it
that look like? I mean,
Well, first off, there's what's happening in both individuals is stillness. There is a deepening, if not profound, stillness, presence. So there's nothing to do as in busyness.
mm-hmm.
There's just this stillness that's underlying all things that then moves up into any action that needs to be given in any circumstance. And so in my own life, for instance, being a male, I have this purpose. And this purpose, which we were talking about,
mm-hmm.
for me now, at one time my purpose was I was a display artist in the West End of London, and that was my purpose. My purpose was to create and give in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But now I know my purpose to be much more than that, although that's taken me to this. My purpose is to restore man and woman as the universal beings that they truly are on this earth. For man to truly see who woman really is, and therefore see who he is inside himself. And I know that to be my purpose, and I live that. So in the living of this with woman, you would know a stillness, know a rightness, and there would be no doubt in man of who he is and what direction he's going in. And with his woman, there would just be the sheer pleasure and the joy of just being with her, and the joy of making love with her, and the honor of making love with her.
Indeed. No, one understands how the feelings of adoration and why there are so many hymns to woman, and to the goddess also, and deities, etc., that are feminine. I mean, we understand as men what that feels like inside, and I know in my own relationship I've been able to actually feel and connect to the energy that she feels towards me in the same way of adoration, and just it becomes a holy matter.
That's right,
Literally, actually.
A sacred way of life.
Yeah.
And a holy, joyful way of life, that really life is a joy, not a problem that you now see around the world.
Yes, exactly.
Where we've identified with our minds and our feelings and our emotions so much, our bodies, rather than our essence.
And at the same time, we see the world that we've created, and if, to go back to something that you also said in the workshop, what goes on in woman is really a matter of the reflection of man's projection, his, if you will, penetration, that the whole world occurs to us as that, reflected, if you will, back to us, and then it's dumped in our lap. For us to then do something with.
To see.
To see.
So, because originally, you see, we were only ever here to behold God, to behold woman as love, just to behold her. And in beholding her, man would actually know his own essence, his own presence, his own stillness, his own authority. But when he started to think and project thought from a personal historical viewpoint and hold positions, then in that projection would enter woman, and he would not love woman so much because he would see his own projection and he can't love himself. So he'd love his own projection, and the more he was actually seeing his own pain, his own distortion in woman, that the more he would throw out, and the more she would reflect back to him his own pain, his own distortion. Because at the end of the day, it must be seen that man is the positive reflection. He is that projects out. He's the projector.
Yes.
So any projection, whether it's in woman or in man, is male, because it's a projection, a positivity.
Yes.
So it has to be male, and he's responsible for that polarity.
Movement.
That's absolutely it. Yeah, and yet woman, being the negative, the receptacle, is opened and receiving. So she's obviously that receives. Now if she's receiving a projection that's not grounded in source, and she produces a reflection that's not grounded in source, you get the world of problems that we now see.
Now, absolutely. One of the things that you brought up in the workshop that I was kind of moving around towards, since I want to try to make this immensely beautiful conversation practical also, so people can embody it, is that with the problems with which we're currently living, there are such an abundance of problems that exist as they are perceived between men and women. So you were saying about being present, for a man to bring his presence and truth, his embodiment of truth to a woman, so she can release the projections ultimately that he brought to her.
Yeah.
So she can release them, and then ultimately, after time or what have you, become neutral from those.
Be
and
her
they
own
can
love.
Be her own, exactly.
Be the love that she really is.
Yeah. So
Of
is
course.
that the process? I mean, how you
Well,
would
of course,
say it?
I'd just like to say, in the deep, she is her own love, and in the deep, he is his own truth. In the deep.
in the deep.
But we're talking about existence here.
Right.
So between this and this, something's got between. And what's got between is the male projection of self-concern, of egoity, of building the world the way he wants it, and not the original blueprint set within his divine mind. So that's the distinction that I'm making, and that's what's got between them two. So he's has that power to project. Woman's picked up the projection, and now she's become less woman and more man. And that's where the pain is. And he's finding it difficult to love her because he can't love his own distortion. And yet that's what he's trying to love in her, and it's in her. So the only way he can truly love her is by A, letting go of the distortion and returning to presence once again, and being very, very present in serving his being and serving the love that woman represents. Then what can take place in their divine loving, their divine being together and love-making together, he can gradually take out of woman the distortion that he's placed in her through right loving. It's then taken out.
And of course, that's the main subject of your workshop. You can say is right loving. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a subject that will keep us all going well into the future. Bernie, I know this is a very artificial way to wrap this up, but you're doing beautiful work, and I just want to thank you for it and your presence here in New York, and we look forward to bringing you back
Thank
in
you.
the springtime.
Yes, I'd love to come back.
We'll have many more people to come visit and partake of the wisdom. It's really beautiful.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you. Good to meet you too. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. I hope you enjoyed that and were enriched by it as much as I was. And you can get hold of Bernie through his website, which we'll put on here for you. And we look forward to seeing you all next week.